welcome to Discover Me podcast. We bring you amazing people doing remarkable things in a very influential way. I'm Brian.
And I'm Lavanna. And today we have with us Dave Staton, husband, father, retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, and entrepreneur. Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Chief. How are you?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. So great to see y'all's face again and get a chance to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, it has been, I think,
5
years since we've seen each other.
Wow. Well, we may not have seen each other, but I keep track of y'all. So
Same here. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Before we jump all the way into it, please tell us who Dave Staton is.
Yeah, that's a great question. Dave Staton's just a good old country boy from Alabama and Arkansas. I was an 18-year-old punk kid with no direction, no idea what I'm going to do with his life. And, I got thrown an opportunity by chance, I think, to join the Air Force. Really, that's who I am. I'm a hard worker. My life motto is play hard, work harder. A little different than that, play hard, work hard. I think to be successful and to, live the kind of life you're supposed to, you should do both. But if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get there. So, but like you said, I'm a husband to an amazing woman of my high school sweetheart, Kimberly, of 33 years. We got married on pass in basic training. She followed me to life. And then 3 successful kids. My son, Jared, who did 5 years in the Army, is now in school full time, doing wonderful things with him. He and his wife are. And then, of course, Alyssa, First Lieutenant Staton, stationed at Ramstein, Academy graduate. And then Hannah, in her about to graduate with her LVN nursing school, and then go on to her RN program. So, that's who I am. And, I'm a man of person of purpose too, I should say. I think I've always had this, some calling that I never could describe or never could pinpoint, but I knew I had a purpose, and I've always kind of been searching for that, I think, my whole life. I think it kind of worked itself out in the Air Force, and I really think it was, to help people, to help others, to help people be their best. And so, that's who I am. And that's what I'm about. If we have time, I can tell you what formed that person of purpose and passion. So, you guys, I've never told you this story before. I didn't use it in the Air Force, and I didn't tell people for a reason, because I never really, although a lot of people do it, I never really said, hey, my life was like this, my life was like that before I joined the Air Force. I think people overuse that. We all overcome problems and situations. And so I had a rough life. I didn't grow up wealthy. I didn't have all the, great life, and came from a broken home and all that kind of stuff too. But there's a couple of events that from other people that shaped my life and things that happened. First, I drowned when I was 3 years old. I never tell anybody this story. I actually drowned, was pulled out of the water, lifeless, no breath, nothing.
Wow.
16-year-old kid, lifeguard, revived me. Then I spent some time in the hospital and all. I ended up being fine, but I remember being a little kid and sitting on my great grandfather's lap, and he told me, "Do you have a purpose? I don't know what it is, but you have a great purpose. God gave you a second chance. You need to figure out what that is." So I think that shaped me very young to say, what is it? And it shaped the way that I think about life too. I really don't concern myself or worry about a lot of things that I think most people worry about, because I know that it's okay in the end. I don't mean I'm not trying to get religious at all or anything, but my mindset's a little bit different. When I was playing football, probably about 8 or 9 years old in Alabama, we start really young.
Yes, we do.
I found a $50 bill in a parking lot after practice, And I was all happy holding it up and looking at it and bragging. And my coach grabbed me by the shirt and said, "Is that your $50?" I said, "Well, I found it." He said, "And somebody lost it." And let me tell you, this is like what, early 70s, $50 was a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
He looked me dead in the eyes and said to me, he said, "You have two choices. You can keep it and it's yours, or you can give it to me and we'll take 2 weeks and try to figure out who it belongs to. And after 2 weeks, if we don't figure it out, then it's yours." What kind of man are you going to be?
Wow.
I mean, just little things like that. I can tell you stories. I think those are two specific events that kind of shaped me, and because integrity is really important to me, honesty is really important, and so that's who I am. So thanks for the question. I hope that was.
Well, no,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
good. And I can attest to all of that. That is exactly who you are. That is everyday experience that I had with you when we interacted, and you lived just like that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. And you kind of got into it a little bit, but when you mentioned the Air Force, I was gonna ask how did you get to the Air Force? Like, what exactly was it that made you decide to go to the Air Force?
Well, remember I mentioned I came from a broken home, like a lot of kids did. Growing up, my dad kind of always said that he had money for us to go to college. So I'll be honest, in high school, I was, like I said, a punk kid. I really didn't, I worked hard, don't get me wrong. And I worked from as long as I can remember. I had a job hauling hay first until I was old enough to get a real job. And then I flipped steaks at the SIZ until I went to the Air Force. But I found out when I was 16, I lived on my own with my best friend and his mother. I moved in with them. And I went to my dad's house and talked to him about college. And he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. If you want to go to college, but I'm not paying for it. I don't have the money." Like, "Well, I thought he goes, "Do you see that Ford Escort in the driveway, son? There's no college money." And so I went to school the next day, really upset. And a good friend of mine named David Young, who's just a retired senior master sergeant, he told me about the Air Force. He told me this big plan that he had. He was going to do 4 years. He was going to be a cop in the Air Force, a police officer. And then he was going to get out and be an Arkansas state trooper. And I was like, "What in the world? What is it? What are you talking about?" And so he convinced me, like, man. And he told me they're going to pay for his college and they're going to do all this kind of stuff. I'm not kidding you. I had to be at work, probably at 4:30 or 5 something. I drove from my little hometown to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to the mall as fast as I could. I walked in the recruiter's office, said, "I want a hat and a t-shirt. Where do I sign?"
Wow.
I didn't know anything about the Air Force. I didn't know anything about basic training. I didn't know what a TI was, or NTI, which is another story we can talk about another.
Yes.
Where, because I became a TI and I spent 11 and a half years of my life doing that. Anyways, I didn't ask for a job. I didn't have a guaranteed job. I didn't know anything. Just I was going to the Air Force, and that's what got me there.
Wow.
Wow. So one person influenced an instant decision. And I do have to ask, like, most of us remember like their recruiter being, or if even not a recruiter, but someone being in a uniform, really seeing a person in a uniform really make someone make the decision to go. When that all happened, was this person in a uniform, or was this just a conversation?
Well, yeah, he was in uniform
Okay.
in his office there in the mall. So my great grandfather was Army.
Okay.
Army. My uncle, who's one of my greatest role models in my life, was in the Navy. And so, I was familiar with the military, but I didn't know anything about it. But no, I didn't pay attention to his uniform or anything like that. I know he was wearing blues. I just was at a moment of crisis in my life where I knew I didn't want to take for the rest of my life. And I knew if I stayed where I was. I knew the path that I was going down, and I knew where that was going to lead. And that's not what I wanted for my life. And so when I heard all those benefits and everything, I just got fired up. And I was able to go to basic training with my friend David. Right.
Okay.
And so anyways, I just got lucky, to be honest with you. And I never intended to do a career like a lot of our airmen, right? They go in and they're going to do 4 years, get out, and then and I was going to do the same thing. And I almost got out once during a rollback when I was a young airman, an early out. And I actually was lucky that I worked in the orderly room for the commander because I had an approved separation. And then I got really scared and nervous. I was married, young. We wanted to have kids. And I started thinking about, is that grass really that greener on the other side? Understanding what I was throwing away. And I'd say I really started getting invested, though, when I really started bleeding Air Force, was probably about the three-year mark when I became a young MTI. You know, I was only a senior airman, barely a senior airman. And once I started doing that job, and then you start teaching all these things that you want airmen to be, it really starts becoming who you are. And that's kind of what happened to me in my career. After that first tour of BMT, I was hooked. I knew I was doing 20 or 30 or more. And, you know, I made it to almost 30 before I said, yeah, time to do something else. But yeah.
Okay. Well, and you've touched on your journey, but give us more about your almost 30-year career.
Well, I mean, do you want to hear about my career or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to kind of know like some of the highlights too. Like you said, you were MTI, which is a highlight. Like what are some of the highlights from your career?
Yeah, so like I said, when I became a TI, first of all, I was a 702 back in the day, which a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's an admin troop. I used to tell people if you ever saw MASH, I was radar on MASH. Guys, I put in an exception to policy and actually got approved because airmen were not allowed to be TIs. And then I went down to Lackland and, you know, extremely challenging, extremely difficult on my wife and I, of course, because in those days, I mean, no joke, it was 7 days a week. If I worked 15 hours, that was a short day, you know. It was sun up to sundown. Manning was poor like it usually was in BMT. But I ended up doing 5.5 years during that tour. I made staff sergeant. During that tour, I was promoted to tech sergeant by General Fogelman, actually. Is something that most people don't know about me because when I was active duty, I didn't tell people. I wasn't step promoted. I was promoted by special authority of the chief of staff. I only had 18 months time and grade. That's a story in itself on what led to that. But it had to do with working really hard to solve some of our problems with well, I mean, the truth is we used to not allow homosexuals in the military. And the Air Force was being accused of gay bashing is what they called it. And there was a congressional committee. And anyways, I helped solve the problem of why the attrition rate was so bad in basic training because airmen knew that all you had to do was say, I'm gay, and they would be home within a week or two, easy to get out. Once we identified that, and anyways, I ended up working on a congressional committee with all these people, and I did it for a long time and wrote new policy. How do we do this better so that this isn't just an opportunity for airmen to get out? And we changed a lot. And I spent a lot of time with the chief of staff and his staff, of course, in solving this. And anyways, I lucked out and I got promoted. And then I went back to my career field. It had completely changed. It was now a more like work group administrator, work group manager type. It was 3A, which later 3. Deployed Saudi Arabia. Liston was a baby. And came back from that. I was bored to tears. I'm be completely honest. I was working 7-8 hours a day. I was really good at my job, but it was really, really boring. And so I asked, can I go back to BMT? And I did. And from there, I made master, got to supervise a bunch of TIs, got to do some other jobs like Stanival and stuff like that, teach TI school. That was the first tour I taught TI school. But then I had a really unique situation where I'm not tall enough to do it, but I was asked to go to the Air Force Honor Guard to help lead. They were having a lot of problems with young airmen doing things they shouldn't be doing, abusing their GTC. And I had orders to do that. And 9/11 happened. And so
Wow.
I went to the command chief and asked her, Chief Edna Tart, a wonderful human being, could I be a first sergeant? I knew I already had these orders, but this is really, in my heart, what I wanted to do. And I knew that we were going to a different kind of war. And I didn't, I already did the special duty. Let me go take care of airmen. I don't know what's to come in the future for our Air Force, and I'm following my heart. And so, long story short, I met the board. Back then it wasn't a special duty. You had to meet the board. The chief on the board, I think I had about 10 years in the Air Force. He said, you're too young to be a first sergeant, and you're too junior in grade. He'd asked me my goals, and they were to make chief, to be a first sergeant, and be a TI, which I had already accomplished, my professional goals. And he told me, if we make you a first sergeant, you'll never be a chief. They're going to eat you up. You're just too young, possible. And at the end of that board, I told, when they, they do did you have anything for the board? And of course you do the
feedback.
And I told him, I said, well, you guys have already told me that you don't think I can make it, and that if I do it, that I'm never going to make chief. And I told him, I said, I'm okay with that, because I've been a TI. I know I'll be a heck of a first sergeant. I know I'll take care of airmen the way you're supposed to. And if it's a sacrifice not to become chief, then so be it. Well, they denied me. Chief Tart overrid it, made me a first sergeant. I went to Little Rock, and I spent 6 years doing that. And then my phone rang. It was the chief of BMT, said, can you come home? We're changing BMT. We're going to this expeditionary thing where, airmen go to the field and like the Beast and field training, all that they have, and we need some help. I was a senior master sergeant at that time. And everybody they had down there had no operational experience. And of course, I'd been back out in the operational Air Force, deployed and done all that. And so I said, well, if you can get the chief master sergeant in the Air Force to let me take off my diamond, because remember, I wasn't special duty. It was my career field. Then I'll do it. And he called me next thing and said, get on the next thing smoking, you're coming home. And so then I went back to BMT, was a squadron superintendent, was one of my favorite jobs ever, running a squadron of 20 flights and about 50 TIs, and just the opportunities to lead and impact airmen's lives and young NCOs. But I made chief right away too. So I spent about 1.5 years on that tour. Asked for another exception to policy. I wanted to deploy, and there were group chief jobs. And so I asked the chief's group for an exception to policy to compete because I wasn't qualified. And they said, you're qualified, gave me the exception. And then I ended up an air advisor, group chief in Kandahar for a year. Every AFSC just about that we have in the thick of it, flying on Russian Mi-17s. I get to sit on a door gun and do different things. Such a great experience, but also an awful experience too. I won't lie, but it was a great mission. And from there, I was supposed to go back to BMT to be the superintendent of Air Force Basic Military Training, but I had just only been a chief a couple of months, and I got on the command chief list. And so I won't tell you that whole story, but I ended up leaving Kandahar and going to the Air Force Academy to be the first command chief of the 10th Air Base Wing. And then from there, you guys, I think, know the rest, was Luke Air Force Base and 2nd Air Force, and then AETC. So, yeah, that's a lot, man, to try to cover in 5-10 minutes, but that's pretty much my career. Oh, and all along, this is important to say too, when we talk about children and spouses and all that. My poor wife is dragging 3 kids across everywhere with us doing this. And I repaid my wife for 2 TI tours by becoming a first sergeant, and then turned my diamond in and became a TI again. And then you guys know of a command chief. So our whole, 30 years was a family affair.
Yes,
Yeah.
from day one. From day one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they get as much credit for, my career and whatever impact I may or may not have had. They share that with me.
Yes. I always knew that your career was like no other. Just the strides that were made in almost 30 years were, oh my gosh, I hadn't heard it before. So every time like I hear a story from you, I'm blown away because it's a new one every time. Not that I doubt it or not that I question, because I believe every bit of this was just you gave your all in every bit of this, the reason that you were so successful at everything you did, and why those exception to policies were like, yep, what Dave State? Okay, yes, please. Yes, please. So I am just amazed. Every new story, I am amazed.
Well, thanks, man. Especially those command chief years, I was not, I was an underdog. A lot of people would say you were never an underdog.
No.
But it is true when, I'll tell you this, the first command chief job I didn't ask for. I was not trying to be a command chief. I wanted to go to BMT. That was my dream job. And I was by named by Colonel LaCastro to interview after he had done his interviews. And that's because the Chiefs Group was not supposed to allow me to interview anywhere, but he by named me and I didn't even know him. Same thing happened at Luke with General Rothstein. And then something you guys may or may not know about me is in 2013 or 14, 2013, I applied and was approved for retirement while I was the Luke command chief. And I was 40 days from retirement when I got the call from Chief Tapia at AATC that General Patrick
Remember this.
said, no, I want Dave Staton to come be my command chief. And so I ended up doing that one. And then I wasn't nominated for AATC either. General Robertson called me and hired me. And so I only say that because I go back to that play hard, work hard. My reputation with commanders, my reputation wasn't with, getting racked and stacked here and racked and stacked there. It was just my reputation for working hard and taking care of airmen.
Yep.
It paid off. And I don't know why I told you that story, except for I really think it's important for people to understand that patience, if you put in the effort, you put in the time, you put in the effort, it does pay off. And good things will come to you. But if you don't have work ethic, forget about it. It's not going to happen anyways. Or you're not going to feel good about it.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, and I think it goes along with taking care of airmen. If you take care of your airmen and all airmen that you come in contact with, regardless of the situation, that is the reward, and you have done that. And I can even say for me, you have done that for me. If I may tell a story about our time together, we met when I worked in protocol and you were the 2nd Air Force Command Chief. And since then, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to work for him. I need to work for him because you radiate when you step in a place. It is about business. It is about taking care of airmen. And that I was like, that's him. That's my airman that I want to emulate. But when you gave me the opportunity to come over and be your exec, I had the most traumatic thing that could ever happen to one's life. I lost my sister, and I am supposed to take care of you, and everything that you need as my boss, as my supervisor. But you were like, no, I'm taking care of you, Lavanna. Take off, do what you need to do to take care of business. And you took care of me during that time, professionally. I personally and professionally. And I think you can thank a lot of people personally, but professionally, you stepped in so many ways that you will probably don't know that you did or don't realize how it affected me. You kept my career for me when I was like, I don't think I can do this. And you were like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm going to take care of you. What do you need? And in that moment, I was like, I can do this. If someone is doing this for me in the time that I feel is the worst in my life and telling me to take the time that I need to take care of myself, this is what it's about. And although I was already sold, I was extra sold that day and from that day forward. And I will forever be grateful for you being in that moment in my life and my family's life, because it wasn't just about me, it was about my family too. Well, so I appreciate you and taking care of airmen. That is your purpose, taking care of people.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, Van, I'm so glad everything's worked out for you too. Exactly. Won't get into all that, but yeah. I mean, good troops and, you have to do those things. Yeah. Life, and I'm sorry, there's nothing going on that can't wait, or somebody can't pick up the slack for a while we help our families when they need it. So yeah. It's not that big a deal. It's just, it's what a leader is supposed to do.
And you always, you do that. You do that.
Thank you.
I know. Yes. I was really excited to see when you got the command chief ATC job, because I think we may have been at the AFSA convention and you were saying that the one job you always wanted was to be ATC command chief. So when you got that, I think that we might have been just excited.
Yeah, and we were like, we're going to.
She was like, how can I go?
Yes, we're going to.
So I was really glad to see that, because you spent so long in the ATC, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, like that's where every single bit of training for the Air Force goes through.
You start there. You start your career there. And the most powerful influence that you would ever have coming into the Air Force starts right there. And you were at the center of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted to be with you every step of the way.
Yeah. I wish there was a way to just pull in the team you want to have, and there probably is, but it's probably some gray area on those type of assignments, but
yes.
Yeah. So we're at the point now where we like to play a game called Quick Six.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna ask you 6 questions and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. Can I go first, right?
Yes.
All right. So digital or hard copy notes?
Hard copy.
City or country living?
Country.
Call or text?
Call.
Cash or card?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I knew it. Say it.
I said card, but I think cash mine first.
It is.
What she said.
It is.
Say cash.
He's gonna say cash.
Right. Would you rather encounter a shark or a bear?
Ooh. Well, probably a bear.
You'll have to explain that one later.
No, like you can outrun the shark. I mean, the bear, but it's kind of, sharks can swim pretty fast. I feel like
I drowned when I was 3 years old.
Oh yeah. You know what? Never mind on that.
He didn't know that quick. He didn't know that before.
Going into it. Yeah.
So last one, Alabama or Auburn?
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Don't take her Roll Tide, Chief. Tell her she cannot say Roll Tide.
She says it really well.
No,
Go ahead.
She said that she can be equal down the line Alabama and Auburn fan, and I said I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can pull that off.
So I feel that if we keep the championship in the state, you can be both because you just want it to remain in Alabama. I don't love one over the other. I grew up in a household, in a family that was divided, and I could never choose because you know how it is. So I just stood in the middle and was like, I'm just gonna hold these sides apart. I was that person, and I have remained that. Long as we keep it in the state, I'm good.
It's much easier to just go to the Razorbacks and just call it a day.
And then I'll put Razorbacks number 2 because they're equal to me.
Well, I'm living in Arkansas now. I'm trying to be a Hog fan, but I tried when I was a kid too. It was really difficult, but no offense, Razorbacks. It's always Roll Tide with me, but I'm with you on that. In fact, for me, I just want to see the SEC win if Alabama.
There you go. Yes.
I do want the SEC to take it. I'm one of those guys.
No, I can say that for real. If I want the Razorbacks too. We always have a lot of work though, a lot of work each year, losing coaches and players and stuff. But if the Razorbacks are not, then I want to stay in the SEC. Like I hate when someone else outside the SEC wins because then they feel like their conference is better.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a winning season this year. I think they're only going to go 2-6 in the SEC, but they're going to have a winning season overall.
What? That's
Brian,
wow.
Man, they got the roughest schedule in college football. Look at their schedule. It is insane.
It's always rough. I don't know why we do that to ourselves. But our defense is coming up. But that's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. We're gonna get there.
We'll go to a game, man. I mean, I'll be going to a few, so
we're gonna get there.
Okay.
So going into the last question. As a parent and a retired chief, command chief at that, what advice would you give someone, a civilian who's considering like, do I need to go into the Air Force? Is this the career for me? What would you tell them?
A parent giving their child the advice.
Whether it's a parent giving their child, or like you're a parent, so you have a kid in the Air Force, and you have or two kids that were in the military and one that wasn't. What advice would you give someone that's trying to make that decision?
Well, I think first and foremost is not to force anything. I think if you raise your kids, a certain way with those things I talked about early, integrity, work ethic, honor, and, discipline and all, and you give them the right foundation. If they want to join the military, then support them 100%. I think as a parent, what was hard for me, because Alyssa shocked me when she said she wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. I absolutely shocked me. I just want to help them find out what their passion is, what they're driven to do, who they want to be. And regardless, I mean, there were times Hannah told me she just wanted to go to cosmetology school, and I was 100% good with that. I'm like, good. I mean, go. And if that's what makes you happy, if that's what you're driven to do, and she still kind of says that sometimes, even though she's loving her time, doing her clinicals as a nurse student. But I think just get behind your kids. Now, if there's families out there, if the question were to go like, hey, is being in the Air Force good for my kids? Absolutely. I mean, there are so many stories, you guys included. Mm-hmm. My story, I'm telling you, I'm home now. I live in the town where I grew up in Arkansas, where I graduated high school, and I love being here. But people are like, where have you been? What is going on? And if you start telling stories and, just think about it. Yes, there are times that it's not very fun. You are going to be separated from your family. You are going to be pushed. But the great thing about that is you're going to be pushed and find out who you are. You're going to be pushed to limits that you didn't think you were capable of. And that's what, I could tell you about my TI who, I won't do that now, but who made such a huge difference in my life when I already thought I was, Mr. It, when he helped me figure out that I had so much more, I just had to dig deep and find it. And so, and every parent I've ever seen that has a kid successfully graduate basic training always says, you completely changed my kid in 6 or 8 weeks, whichever program they went through. You're making good money as a brand new kid out of high school or college if you're going commissioned. You're getting opportunities. My kids speak foreign languages. My kids have traveled the world. They are grounded in a way that other kids just don't have the same opportunities. And then, of course, the benefit of going to college, Air Force paid for my college. The Air Force Academy, of course, paid for Alyssa's. Jared's using GI Bill. Hannah's using my GI Bill right now. I gave it to her. And so that pays for her apartment, gives her money for groceries and all that stuff, and pays her tuition. And you have a great life. For me, I don't know. I would highly encourage any parent that if their kid is saying, I want to join the Air Force, support them and talk to people that have done it. So, but again, the big thing is, let your kid be who they want to be and just support them, get behind them. Not saying if they want to be a drug dealer, get behind that and find
no, legal.
No, I agree. We always tell our kids, and even just in the Air Force, when I talk to people, I say, like there's always this volunteering and all these different things, and how do I get promoted? And I said, you're going to be the most successful doing what you want to do and what you enjoy doing. If you pick that, you're going to go way further than you would trying to do what somebody else did, trying to chase what made them successful. So I agree. I think the same thing goes with like your future with kids. So
yeah, don't try to be somebody else. That's an acting job. Just gotta be. You can take great qualities from other people and learn from them, but you can't be that person. I've made that mistake too, trying to. I'll try to lead this way or that way, and it
doesn't work.
It's not me.
And if it does work, you don't enjoy it. So.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
Well, we just want to say thank you for joining us. This was awesome. I've heard some of the stories before, but not all of them. But just to see a career go the way yours did, it's I don't think anyone who didn't know you would believe it. If we wrote this and we didn't, we were like, yo, there's someone who did this, and I told this story, they were like, no. But we've seen it. So just to see all that is crazy. It's amazing too. So thank you again for joining us.
Well, listen, thanks for inviting me. I'm really proud of you guys, and I'm proud for what you're doing right now too. Please keep it up. And if you ever need anything from me, I'm just a phone call away. You know that. And that goes to anybody out there that's watching this. If you need any help, that's what I like to do, is help people.
Same here, Chief.
Okay, and we'll definitely have you back so we can talk about this post-retirement or this retirement life that you're living. Because I can only imagine that you're doing wonderful things in your retired Air Force life.
We didn't even touch on that either. So we got to get you back for that one.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll tell you all about it. I'm having the time of my life. So retirement too.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, take care.
Yep, take care.